Hey, so I'm back from LA. I just want to give a shout out to WB Games for inviting me out to the Mortal Kombat reveal, where we got to check out the first footage of Mortal Kombat 11. And yeah, alongside that invitation, they kind of had us come in and check the game out and get some footage, take a look at it. So it was a really cool event. You know, had some had a nice setup. They had some really awesome cosplay. In particular, one Xavier Woods was killing it with his insane Shao Kahn. That was fucking rad. And we got to take a look at the game, which was so suddenly announced and just as suddenly revealed, and is just as suddenly going to be coming out in April. So crazy how fast this turnaround is going. But I can say, after getting some time in, getting some matches with new friend, TrueUnderDawgGaming, really cool guy. Be sure to check him out. He's got some great videos up, including these matches with me and some other fighting game breakdowns and such. And of course, talking with Maximilian, jumping on his stream a bit later that night, and kind of getting a full feeling of what this initial look at the game is like. Yeah, you can take a look at some of the matches that we had here casually for pretty much the better part of an hour and a little bit. So, first impressions right off the bat is that this game is the most gorgeous Mortal Kombat game that's ever existed, and that's, you know, that should be the case considering like all the tech that we've got nowadays. But it really does look beautiful, and I feel that like a lot of this footage is not capturing how vivid those colors are and how sharp it looks running up in your face. Like, it really does lose a little bit in this capture, unfortunately. But it's really gorgeous when it's running. The models and the quality of the facial expressions and just every costume, every piece of equipment that I've seen that they've put on display so far has been like really just nice. Visually, you know, this is leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of other fighting games right now in terms of just realism. And of course, fatalities being back in their most, like, it's like, how do you one-up the crazy-ass fatalities from MK9? You do the ones you got in MK10. And how do you want to one-up MK10 with the ones in 11? Including, this game has my single most favorite, like, words, hey, Woolie. This has the single coolest fatality I've ever seen, in the form of Scorpion doing a loop-de-loop around you and splitting you down the middle with his heated spear. And just, it ends in like this amazing artistic pose, which is now the win pose, which is now the victory screen. It's just, this game is just firing on all cylinders as far as that goes with art design and everything. Sound was really a bit muffled in the area, so unfortunately I couldn't really hear a lot of the music or dialogue. But I do know, of course, you got Ronda Rousey as Sonya Blade. Now is an announced thing that was there live, and she showed up to the reveal. But yeah, we couldn't really hear too much, unfortunately. I do know that the fatality kind of Mortal Kombat, or more accurately, because the first one was for when you win in MK1. But that noise has kind of changed a little bit, so it was a bit of an odd choice to kind of like change it a little bit. But that was the only real thing I could hear loudly while we were playing. So yeah, I guess the first thing I want to talk about is the mechanics and the mechanical differences between this game and everything else that the NetherRealm games used to be. So easily, the biggest change they've made is a complete overhaul of the way meter and X-rays work. So in previous games, you would build up one of 3 bars, and if you had enough meter, you could use basically meter burn moves, or you could do combo breakers, or you could spend all of your meter on an X-ray attack, which is essentially a super, and that would just be your meter management. You would just need to choose between which one of those things you want to prioritize and spend the meter on. And a lot of the times, people would opt to spend it on breakers instead of X-rays, because breaking out of a combo that would do way more damage and kill you faster is more important in most cases than anything else. So they decided to split things up in such a way so that now every single, no matter what happens, you will always have an opportunity to do your X-ray attack. However, X-rays are now known as fatal blows. So basically, it's not tied at all to your meter, but it's tied to when your life enters danger. So the last segment of your life bar will basically, you'll see the words fatal appear after you hit a certain notch, you know, somewhere around the 20 or less % mark. And at that point, you'll be able to use, with the same inputs on by hitting both trigger buttons, you'll be able to use your X-ray slash your fatal blow. Now, the thing about this is it's a comeback mechanic essentially, because it's now tied to your life bar instead. Which is, you know, a damage based mechanic. So it is something that everyone is going to get at some point. Now, comeback mechanics have become more and more important over the years, and we've seen all versions of them, you know, coming from Ultras in Street Fighter 4 to V-Trigger in Street Fighter 5, and Rage Arts in Tekken most recently. We've seen a lot of different versions of this, Persona Awakening and such. People generally feel negatively towards overpowered comeback mechanics, such as X Factor in Marvel vs. Capcom. And the reason why is because the inclusion of them is to kind of give most players the feeling of a fighting chance when they've been, you know, more or less trounced in a match, but you want to kind of have that one last shot at coming back. And it's sort of an attempt to, like, level the playing field between a skill gap that's too large. However, of course, if the player in the lead then gets their life down to danger, or to, you know, the point that their comeback mechanic kicks in, then they're able to take over and use their advantage as well. So it's supposed to balance out in that way. But if you don't balance things carefully enough, such as if you make the comeback mechanic too strong, what you end up with is a situation where the player who was winning activates the comeback mechanic of the losing player, but the losing player's comeback mechanic is so good that it basically allows them to kill the leading player without them even getting a chance to activate theirs or really fight back. So it becomes a situation where when one player has this mechanic and the other player doesn't, it's more than just a disadvantage. It's a potential lethal situation. X Factor in Marvel vs. Capcom would absolutely do that. Vanilla Street Fighter 4 would have situations where the damage on an Ultra, if you were just about to die, would be beyond absurd and more or less melt your life bar in some situations. So comeback mechanics have had a very negative reception overall in terms of the longevity of a lot of fighting games recently. So with that being said, I feel that the inclusion of them has become somewhat mandatory because it does absolutely help new players feel better about their ability to turn a match around that they were losing initially. And it softens a little bit of the blow you feel compared to playing a game like Street Fighter 2, where you more or less lose and continue to lose, and there's never an attempt to turn the momentum around. So what has been interesting is the evolution of these, and I'd say Tekken 7 most recently has shown a really, really interesting way to implement it that I'm absolutely a fan of, in the form of Rage Arts and Rage Drive. Rage in previous Tekken games was something that people kind of weren't not super hot on because it was a massive damage boost that, again, would be considered overpowered in some situations. But what they've done effectively is they made it so that you have a Rage Art that you can used to do a big special super. However, if you don't have enough life to survive the trade that you would usually take to get your super out, you die anyway. So I'm getting a little bit off topic here from Mortal Kombat 11, but it's important to set this up, I suppose, to explain why I really think what they did here is interesting. I think that a lot of the times, like, a big comeback super in the form of an Ultra can be used out of nowhere to just kind of like brute force your way to you know, massive damage in a situation where you think the person's about to press a button. You can just throw out the Ultra or throw out the move, and then suddenly the exchange always works out in your favor, right? So it's a pretty easy way to guarantee some decent damage, or throwing it out on Wake Up or something like that. So what's great about Tekken 7 is, again, you need to have the life to take the hit and dish out your super and then let it do the damage. But if you're about to die, you die before that super comes out. So all that to say that that's a nice way of kind of mitigating, you know, the unfairness. So in this game, they decided to tie the fatal blow to your life bar, and you can use it. However, once you land the hit, it's gone for the rest of the match. So if you use it in the first round out of desperation to get yourself back in the fight, you better have that plan for the rest of the game, because you will not have a fatal blow in rounds 2 or 3 if you go to a final round. So it is tied to 1 per match, which is really interesting. It allows them to then make the damage really high on them, because it's a massive resource, but it's a scarce resource that, you know, again, in a situation that is potentially dire, you might enter the final round not having your fatal blow while your opponent has saved theirs. So really interesting. I do like that. I think that's a good move in terms of limiting how much this comeback mechanic can turn the flow of battle. However, one aspect of it that is very strange is that if you miss, if you don't land the hit and you just try it and it whiffs or gets blocked, the game has about 5 or so seconds delay on cooldown before you get it again. So basically, you then get you get a cooldown on your super, and you get a free attempt another time, and you can effectively continue attempting to land the super for the rest of that round. So now the idea being, of course, that I guess if you're low on life, then, you know, you're not too far from being killed anyway, so the opponent should be able to shut you down if they land a touch or two while you're in that danger zone. But it's still very strong sounding to give the opponent the ability to whiff the most powerful move in the game and then just get a free shot at trying it again until they're killed. So if they decide to play extremely defensive at that point and wait for it to return, that might become really frustrating in a way. So, but this is the first of many indicators that they kind of are leaning towards a sort of mobile-like cooldown system in an attempt to kind of, I guess, revamp the way meter is handled in fighting games altogether. So that's one weird aspect of it, but that's what they're doing, and that's one of the biggest, most significant changes. So this ties right into the changes they made to the meter itself, which is now, as you can see in the bottom left and bottom right corners, divided into the offense and defense segments. So again, previously you had shared resources between your meter burn moves, your breakers, and your X-rays. Now, since your fatal blow is tied to the life bar, your defense and offense meters are split as well, and you essentially have everything kind of using its own resources, so that you don't have to worry about detracting from one in order to lose the other, and so on and so forth. Like, they are completely independent of each other, which is again an interesting take on things. And I think visually people can understand. Just look, like, I think anyone, even if you're new to fighting games, like you can kind of look and just sort of see a sword and a shield and be like, okay, I more or less understand the idea of what I'm looking at. In fact, one might be led to think that the if you were to see a sword bar or such, you would almost think of it as a stamina bar in some cases. And you would not be far off, because, quite frankly, I literally heard the meter referred to as stamina. And the reason for that is because if you pay attention to what's happening with it, the way you build meter in fighting games usually is by attacking or defending, sometimes getting hit or landing hits. But in this case, it is building automatically on a timer, so your default state is full meter. And every time you use an EX move, an offensive ability, it detracts from the offensive meter, and then you're on a cooldown. Again, very MMO, not MMO, well, MMO-like, or Dota-like, you know, or mobile-like, I should say. And yeah, that's really interesting and different. That's a strange way to approach things I've not really seen in fighting games. I mean, Rising Thunder had cooldowns for its special moves. In this case, your special moves are still there as normal, but the meter is being used for your enhanced special moves. I think it's an attempt to, you know, kind of like, yeah, shake things up in a way that people might recognize from other prominent genres. And it kind of means you always have your resources waiting for you if you kind of just like play patiently and lame things out for a little bit. And that, you know, in a way can definitely encourage people to play defensively and passively. So it's an odd choice, you know. I'm not too sure that's the type of thing I'd like to see of the way meter is handled. When it comes to defensive meter, the way it's spent is on actions such as reversals. There's a universal wake up recovery attack that you can do, or there's wake up options such as rolling or you know, movement positioning. There's defensive options in the form of interactables and in the form of wall running and such. So those all use your defensive meter to do. And you're essentially, again, seeing that stuff as well coming back on a cooldown timer. If you spend both bars, or if you spend like your full offensive or your full defensive meter, you'll notice that after the first one slowly comes back, depending on what you do, some things take longer for the cooldown to kick in. But you'll generally notice with normal usage and normal enhanced moves, or meter burn moves, the terminology changes from game to game, but you'll notice that they take a longer at first, and then they speed up once you hit that first bar's threshold. So it's something that kind of like, you know, the second bar you're gaining back takes a fraction of the time that the first one does. And again, sort of it kind of encourages you to sort of lame it out sometimes if you spend a lot of that meter. And in particular, there's some really good moves that you can spend meter on. So that's one of the big changes as well. I think when you put that hand in hand with this new feature that is a mini X-ray of sorts, they're calling it the crushing blow. It's basically a quick zoom in you'll see from moment to moment in the match that happens either based on counter hit type situations. So it would be situations similar to Street Fighter V's crush counter. After a big walloping attack, you can, if you block it and then choose to punish with the right attack or the right button, you might get one of these mini X-rays where they're then opened up for a huge combo afterwards. In some cases, it's triggered by particular conditions. So similar to how you get a brutality, you can sometimes trigger these crushing blows by pulling off the same move 3 times, you know, and then on the third time it'll activate. Or in some cases, it's you know, based on a very particular response to an attack by like stuffing out something, or, you know, it's very particular. In some cases, it's defensive, so the player who's attempting to defend if they mess up, they might eat it as well. So it's I think a new mechanic that's interesting and kind of, opens up these combo options, but combos have been shortened overall. In general, the feeling of the game, which I'll get into a little bit later, is now much more brief exchanges, and a lot of footsies and poking is the name of the game now. So these openings that create a large opportunity to go for combos are much more critical now than they were in previous games, because you never really had these large counters in the same way in previous games, but you had these long extensive combos and juggles which you would then choose to break or not, and that appears to be completely gone because breakers are completely gone from the game. With the shortening of these combos, you're now not at all going to be spending your meter on breakers, which I kind of thought, I'm like, that was a pretty key mentality in the previous games. I didn't, I thought that was a pretty alright thing to do, and if you wanted to spend, say, all of your offense and defense at the same time on a breaker, that it wouldn't be a bad thing to have. But I guess the idea was that you don't need breakers because there's no long combos, so we can get rid of both of those things at the same time. So that was definitely a mentality shift, and you can see that again repeating in a lot of different areas of this game. There's a mentality shift in what NetherRealm wants Mortal Kombat 11 to be. They want it to be a much more footsie-based, slightly slower-paced, particular game where it's about these short skirmishes and short exchanges of decision-making, as opposed to long-form execution, or much more a ton of decisions in a short period of time, which at high speed Mortal Kombat X certainly kind of encouraged. Some prefer the other way, some prefer this way. I think this is much more of a Street Fighter thing. I've always been a fan of Street Fighter, of course, but I do think that Mortal Kombat and the NetherRealm games kind of came into their own skin. They kind of found their own identity, and it's a little bit strange to step away from that and more towards something that Street Fighter completely engenders in the form of, footsies and poking and particular button whiff punishes. But that's the direction they're going in. That's the evolution they clearly want for the series. So that's kind of like what we're seeing with the new meter usage and the new mechanics. There's another in the form of perfect blocking, which is, again, it's like a mixture between a third strike parry and a just defend from Garou Mark of the Wolves. Essentially, if you hit that block button on the right last second before an attack hits you, you're going to recover faster, as you would from again, a parry or a just defend, and you'll be able to punish faster. So that's a really handy thing to have if you get the timing down, and if you get the ability to memorize some of the strings coming at you. You can throw out a timed block, and you can even block normally and then let go and press the input on the last hit of a string that you think is coming, and actually use that opportunity to recover faster than you would otherwise and make a bigger punish. So what they did as well to sort of encourage you to do this is, while you do this perfect block, if you successfully pull it off, immediately afterwards you can then use any of your defensive options that you have that spend that defensive meter. So that's, again, a wake-up reversal move. That's a universal thing every character has 2 variants of. Or you can do a maneuvering defensive move that gets you out of the situation. So perfect blocking, high-level play usually is going to probably end up using a lot of this, and you have a big reward for doing so in the form of using an otherwise exclusive to knockdown defensive move right after blocking. There's clearly a little bit of a rock paper scissors here, however, because if you can pull this off, you get a nice big reward. But there's also penalties in some cases, such as there's certain moves. I did remember seeing Sonya Blade's projectile, the onion rings, when they're meter burned. I think there was a moment where an attempt to do a perfect block on the last hit failed, and resulted in a lethal blow. Not a lethal blow, sorry, a crushing blow. So the camera zoomed in, did that big X-ray, and it was like, whoa, what was that? And it was like he attempted to basically do a perfect block, and he failed the timing, and instead the game turned it around on you for failing to do this advanced technique. So, you know, it seems like there's going to be circumstances where the game is like, you went for the high-level move, but you weren't quite on point, and that increased your risk. So it's interesting. I actually really do like the ability to do a parry into a defensive movement. I think that's a really cool idea, and I can't wait to see how that gets implemented. It's a fantastic way of allowing you to make a hard read on someone who's being predictable and optimize the way you punish them for it. I think that's a really cool idea. Now, in a more general train of thought, the way the game is shaping up in terms of variations is something that seems to be... okay, so they're pushing an idea of custom variations, right? So in previous games you had, of course, the 3 different versions of the character you'd play, each having a specific move or a few moves that are unique to a given variation and a given play style. That you're expected to kind of like work into your meta, quote unquote. But in this case, they're having the idea of those 3, but they're also pushing this idea of customizing your variations and essentially going to a menu and going through a list of moves that rate between 1, 2, or 3 points, and you have 3 points to spend on each variation, so you can choose three alright moves, 2 great moves, or 1 amazing move to customize, and each is tied to a piece of equipment as well. Cool idea in theory, and a bit like the Mii Fighter sort of thing where you can customize your stuff and tweak your movesets and whatnot, and I'm sure that's going to do really good for them in terms of online, because people get to customize their characters and everyone has fun going with a unique playstyle that they're enjoying building as they level up and such. Kind of like Injustice with the equipment. Really fun for people in an online capacity. However, of course, when it comes to a standardized sort of tournament setting, that becomes a bit of a nightmare, because if people have to be able to go and customize their 3 moves and such, then that becomes a very time-wasting thing for a lot of people. And they did mention sort of the idea of having 3 set variations, and then perhaps not allowing any customized ones in tournament settings and such. But and I guess that kind of solves the problem, but then it ends up kind of just being a bummer that there's access to other move options that might not actually end up being used in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, I know a popular complaint with Injustice was the fact that, like, yeah, there'd be moves that you'd never see for a while because you have to loot them, and things like that. So it feel, and in Smash Brothers case, I remember when they started including the variations as well with those moves, and there's like these tweaks to the B moves that you just never see, that would never really get used, because in a tournament setting, no one's going to kind of do that. So that's a bit of a bummer that you might end up with these moves that are like possible variations that people won't use. It would have been way, I think, smarter to kind of just let people very quickly pick, what they wanted to go with in terms of perhaps that complete move list and in making up their style, But at the same time, there's something to be said for a casual player sort of for the first time coming in and being asked to pick 3 of 9 moves, and you kind of feeling overwhelmed with that choice and not sure which way to go with it. So it's hard to say, but I do think in the end it's going to be a win for I guess player matches and unranked online play, and it's going to be a lose for ranked play and for local matches, because effectively you're not going to see some of these included options for your character. So there's that, and then there's the general flow of play, which you know, for the most part, is Mortal Kombat, and it's a bit weird to see that like the you know, there's the stance switch button is still present, and it's now actually being used for some of those defensive options, so you actually do need to press that button from time to time. It's not completely worthless now, but regardless, I feel as if the overall flow of the game, which I touched on earlier, has become much more footsie oriented, and this is very clear from the fact that there's no longer a run. So you cannot run anymore. You cannot do. You're not going to be having that type of mobility and control in terms of getting up in your opponent's face and staying there. The immediacy has been reduced. Now it's a lot harder to move forward, especially as zoning is very present and very strong, and getting hit out of a jump, an attempt to jump over for a fireball, for example, like Sonya's projectile, lands you way back at the end of the screen, so you have to kind of work your way back in slowly. And this is something that, you know, we saw constantly in these matches. I played against Scarlet a lot, and I saw that she could zone, and a lot of characters had zoning tools, and not all of them, but I would say most, though, did have forward-moving options, but they were basically like forward-moving 3-string combos, or like one big slide, you know, or like in some cases, like Raiden had a teleport, or Geras had a teleport as well, based on one variation, that is. So there was these, what I would call side B. You know how the side B attack in Smash Brothers is kind of meant to move you sideways a little bit, and in some cases help your reality before you use your up B? Your recovery before you use your up B. I feel like that's what some characters have. They have these swoop quick ways to move forward with an attack of sorts, but that's not, you know, super always a reliable way to get in some cases, because I mean, if you're talking about the slide, you block it, you punish it, you know. Teleports are very quick, and some characters have ways of getting in around zoning, but it's not something that everyone had. For example, Sonya didn't exactly have, you know, that, though Sonya had some very strong zoning capability. So yeah, it feels as if that, you know, what they wanted specifically was to remove things like running, so that, again, you have these pokes, these low short combos. If you do need to get in past zoning, you use this, you know, perhaps this one side B style, you know, body projectile of sorts to get in there if you can. And or use these forward-moving projectiles, but again, it's more forward-moving buttons and strings. But again, it's like you're taking risks with these you know, these blocked strings, and it's not a really safe way to go about getting in there compared to something such as running or dashing, or, you know, dash blocking to sort of interrupt your momentum and kind of get in there more precisely. So. That was, yeah, again, big change in the flow, big change in the way things are handled. And then, of course, there's the fact that, as I mentioned, you're making meter back by waiting for your meter to come back. And it's hard to move forward in many cases, so walking back becomes incredibly strong, becomes a very, very viable thing to do at most points during the match, to just be like, yep, I'm out, and you just walk back and let that meter come, and let them come to you, and you know, wait until you're fully stocked up, right? So walking back is currently the thing to do in the game, yeah, that's not going to necessarily make for exciting things, but I do know that there's some great examples that have come out, you know, since the reveal event, like watching the Ketchup and Mustard doing some Scorpion and Sub-Zero sets that were very fast moving, and, you know, they stayed in each other's face and showed off a lot of the mechanics. So I do see that there are examples of how this this game, with all its mechanics being used, can have a high sense of immediacy in certain situations. But from the brief time that we touched it, we kind of walked away feeling that defense was key, defense was king, and with nothing like a guard break in place effectively to stop you from blocking forever, outside of course, getting thrown, yeah, you just could, you know, more or less play with time and just kind of wait for your timer to fill back up. You wait for your cooldown to run out and then get back in. You know, it's a bit of a strange thing to do with fighting games, because I think the traditional idea of having to sort of earn that meter, it required some honesty in a way, where you kind of had to, okay, let's say you're fully stocked, you had some really big gambles you took, and those were highly advantageous, but you spent them, you guessed wrong, or you didn't guarantee them, and now you kind of have to sort of earn them again. You know, you don't just get them back for waiting. Like, you have to earn those highly advantageous offensive opportunities. And in this case, you don't really have to earn them. You kind of just have to wait on them, and you know that your opponent's going to have them as well. So defense and, you know, perhaps spamming will become a bit of a constant. But of course, again, in theory, using your side B to swoop through it might just be the intended use and might be the way they want this game to shape up. But that's my observations on the way these the flow of the fighting felt. Now, in terms of roster, as you can see from the list here, there's you know, a couple of choices, but my most focused on was Geras, the new addition, in the form of big old black time sand controlling motherfucker over here. He was really cool. I thought he was pretty interesting. I felt he kind of gave me vibes of like half a Mummies Alive character, you know, minus like the headpiece. But on his third variation, you can kind of put on this Sentai looking armor as well. So I was like, okay, let's see what you got going on, Geras. You know, that was pretty slick. He had a command throw. He has this low projectile that kind of sucks you in, sort of like little atrocitus keep away aspects, you know. He has the ground projectile that like pops up at certain locations depending on whether you hold forward, back, or neutral, and you can spend meter to kind of time it on one of his variations. And then, of course, there's his overall gimmick of time control. Now, he has time control in two aspects, and thankfully now, after not understanding it at all at the show, I always feel like, oh man, I wish I could just fast forward to a couple days to learn what I'm going to find out as soon as I'm back home. But alas, you know, on the show floor, I couldn't for the life of me figure out how these other variations worked, but we did eventually get the heads up later after the show. But what he does is he controls time, and so I was able to find out in the match, in one of these matches, that in one case it literally means time in the sense of you can pull time from the clock in game itself. So if your match has 45 seconds left, you hit that button and 30 seconds disappears, and now you're down to 15. Apparently it doesn't let you drop below 10 seconds, but you can aggressively play timer scam and timer scum by taking the life lead, dropping it to 10 seconds, and doing what you can with your keep away moves to waste the rest of that 10 seconds and win on time. So he has that ability. Similarly, if you're losing, you can add time to the clock, but you can only do either of these things once per round, and you can kind of put a bunch of extra time, and you can even get that timer to go above 99 seconds if you throw extra time on it. So if you're losing and you want to kind of increase your opportunity, then that's one other way to do it, based on his one of his variations. And then there's finally another variation where he controls time, but not in the sense of the actual game clock, but in the sense of save states of his position. So you can effectively wait 4 seconds and then rewind any time except for when you're knocked onto the ground or in the middle of a throw, presumably. You can rewind to where you were 4 seconds ago. So if you're getting juggled in a combo, if you're getting hit even, you can input the variation special move, and your body will more or less slide and teleport back to where you were 4 seconds prior, getting you out of trouble on a particularly consistent possible basis. Of course, it uses your offense meter to do this, but this is a really good defensive option for him. So while I wasn't able to figure it out at the time that I was there, now that we know what it does, that's a really interesting possibility. And of course, you don't have any other thing you get with it alongside choosing that final variation, but getting yourself out of trouble with hits like that is crazy. So Geras is interesting. What I was able to discover in trying to find my way in on some of the matches I had against Scarlet is that, yeah, you could definitely create some interesting setups for that running command grab. And of course, if it does land, he takes you really far across the screen. The corner carry is incredible. If you do hit a wall, then he creates a sand wall and he slams you against it for a little bit of extra damage. So that was very fun with him. And I liked these setups where I could kind of put out a delayed time projectile. And while you're getting ready to block that projectile, I can instead grab you very quickly beforehand. So fun little mind games like that. He also has these strings that end in very particular timing hit grabs. So you'd land 3 punches, for example, and then input a throw, and then the last hit of the combo becomes a throw to the ground or to reposition the opponent. Almost similar to the way Guy or Cody in Street Fighter can do a normal string of combos, a normal combo, and then end it with a throw. So that's a particular thing to Geras as well. Overall, I had a lot of fun with him. I think he was... I like what's going on with him design-wise, and I feel like he's got an interesting tool set. He's got this massive punch that you can use to create some crushing blow situations, and it's also very good as a spacer. He's got this lunging knee that then you can cancel into a headbutt as well. And again, all of that, and then he's got a shoulder rush, which you can back out of as well using a meter. So he's got these options that effectively, you can use to create these strings, and then in theory, back out of them, and then punish somebody who decides to come at you, or fake people out, or get out of a situation where you're like, oh no, like I did something really unsafe, now I need to just get out of there. Geras has that ability as well. I felt that, like, yeah, like I like the creativity put into like allowing him to timer scam as an intended mechanic. I think that's fun, and design wise I think he's pretty dope as well. I didn't go look at his extended move list in terms of the extra options you could put on from his custom variations, but overall he was the boy I was most interested in looking at that roster. Although not to take anything from Scarlet's new outfit, she's looking fine, super slick with that outfit. I think it definitely you could tell that NetherRealm was listening to the demands for who they wanted to come back, and Scarlet was a huge hit with that with her introduction last time, so that was great. Yeah, I feel like some cool stuff was added as well, like little details like Sonya's throw where she grabs you and tosses you onto a grenade, or Geras's forward throw where he teleports and does this awesome like air toss of your body. Raiden has this, he has his Superman like torpedo now has this startup that you can cancel, so there's a little bit of a delay to it where you can kind of fake someone out if you think it's coming. Or this giant lightning anti-air, or this like these ground stomps to zone you out again, and it's these are some cool action additions. Although that zoning gets really strong, and nobody wants to see Injustice level zoning, unfortunately, because that becomes a nightmare to play online. That's not a lot of fun at all. So some of these really strong zoning options are kind of worrying, not gonna lie. I'm a little bit concerned about how strong they seem, but perhaps we'll be able to tell from whatever other characters get unveiled over time whether they wanted the game to revolve around having the ability to use one special move to get closer to the opponent, as opposed to zoning being a little bit less strong. So if everyone ends up with a big side B, then we know that it's a game mechanic that's intended. I likened it to the way you play Street Fighter V and the V skill that everyone gets. It's not absolutely every single one, but a large, overwhelming majority of them are clearly meant to deal with projectiles, right? You have a lot of characters that have things that are meant to stop a fireball, you know, whether it's a parry or a catch or a dash or a ground pound. There's a lot of stuff that's just like, you spam a fireball, I'm getting through it. That's what this V skill is meant for. So they wanted everyone to have a way to not deal with zoning as difficult as it used to be. And so if that's what Mortal Kombat 11 wants to do here, then you're gonna see every character have some sort of big old screen horizontal moving body projectile of some kind. Of course, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get away from every kind of projectile, but like again, the ability to not run is definitely a huge one, and you're going to feel that. Something I should have mentioned a little bit earlier as well, short jumping is a thing. Short jumping is scary in King of Fighters, and it's basically a half height jump, which is harder to react to, and it keeps the pressure on. However, they didn't go full KOF this time. They kind of just included it in a neutral jump sense, so you can only jump straight up and do a short hop. It knocks you down if you land a hit from it, so it knocks the opponent down, I should say. So you're not getting any big punishes, you're not getting any massive combo starters, but it's made for these call-outs. Like if you think someone's going to do a low attack or even a mid attack, if you think if someone's going to attempt to throw, you know, if you make a hard read on what they're going to do, you'll do this little short jump, and then you will knock them down for it. If you could move forward like you could in KOF, it would become the most aggressive thing in the world. It would be incredible. However, they decided not to do that because of the design philosophies. It's unfortunate that you can't pick up a combo off of it, because I feel that it kind of makes it ultimately obsolete once people learn the timing and get better at perfect blocking, because anything that you're reading the opponent's going to do with a perfectly timed short jump, you can probably get a better punish by instead doing a perfect block and getting a full combo, because the short jump will just give you one hit, whereas a perfect block and retaliation can give you a full combo opportunity. So it's a bit of a it's a bit of a strange addition in the sense that I like short hops, but I think that this purpose it serves, being neutral only, is going to become obsolete whenever people end up getting good enough to do perfect blocks. But if you never do, then I guess it's for the mid-range, right? It's for the player that kind of gets a little bit above beginner, that gets used to this as their way of punishing predictable opponent actions instead. So that's kind of the purpose it's serving right now.